Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Printing's Alive, the podcast with me, Warren Werbitt. And you know it, as usual, we have another special guest. How fortunate am I to get all these special people who want to come on and chat with me? So today we have Katelin Shanks from Racami.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Warren. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, happy to have you here.
Yeah,
So before we get going, just give us a brief lowdown on Racami.
sure. Racami, we're a software company in the print and mail space, and we do the hard stuff. If you're looking for, ADF migrations, multi-site automation and orchestration, we make sure that from the time data comes into your shop to the time it's printed, inserted out the door in the mail, you have full visibility and you can really orchestrate all of those tiny little tasks that have to get done to make sure you're getting the right communication out to the right customer on the right channel.
That sounds like a great pitch.
Tried to condense it for you. Tried to keep it tight.
No, no, it just sounds so perfect, like everything works so easily.
No, wouldn't that be nice? No.
Yeah.
That's what we salespeople get to do in a 30-second elevator pitch. And then it takes, a whole slew of developers and solution architects to, come in and make it work and think through all the angles. And, we do architecture and planning before clients, before we ever write a line of code. And that is, it can be 2-3+ months of whiteboarding and getting into the details and the weeds and interviewing everyone at your organization. I mean, it's intense, but you almost have to get to that level of detail to have a software product on the other side of it that is going to function for the long term.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I remember doing some software change up on a couple of our systems, and everybody hated me. Right? Well, number one, people hate change,
Mhm.
right? And software, from my experience, I mean, it's never perfect. You're changing it up with a goal in mind to get somewhere, but the road is generally very bumpy to get there.
Yeah, that's definitely it can be the case. I'm trying to think back if I've ever seen a perfect seamless implementation and not one, there isn't one that comes to mind. And so I think that's why we always try and tell our clients up front, we're like, okay, we know that these really hard projects are what's right for your company. You're making the right investment, but you also have to make the right selection in terms of a vendor who's going to be that partner and work with you through the hard times and the challenges and the road bumps, because there's always unknowns that pop up in software. But as long as you've got that relationship and you all know you're working towards the same goal, that typically helps make those challenges and those road bumps go a little bit smoother. Not
Yeah, so
always.
I would say first that the printer has to have a dedicated person inside on their team that's going to channel everything. Because if you have multiple people that are doing it and no one's consistent, then the messaging changes, because it's really hard, from my experience, to take in, and everyone speaks a little differently, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you're going, it's like So let me go back, because I had a question before. I had a question to go with what we just said, but I'm going to go back before I ask
Okay.
that question.
Back to the start.
Um, yeah, we'll start off like that. So, question, no number, just a question. How do
Answer.
printers typically engage with you? Like, what's the first conversation?
Okay. So that's typically, we don't like to dive right into demos because it can be overwhelming, especially when it's a lot of new concepts and we're changing stuff up, kind of changing the paradigm for how you would typically orchestrate work through a shop. And so we just try and do a digital whiteboard where we're going to ask you, all right, tell us about all of the different softwares you've got in place, all the legacy databases, what printers are you running, what types of inserters, finishing equipment. And if we can start to map all of that out into a process workflow, 10,000-foot view, then that gives us the space to start asking questions about where the pain points are and where those gaps might be and where there's too many manual touch points. And then you can start to see how either our software or other vendors can, layer into that process in your environment to kind of get you where you want to go. So I always start with current state. It's that simple.
So, question: from the time you come in, you sit down after the first meeting, when you agree that everyone agrees that you're going to come in and gather this information. how long
Mhm.
does it take to generally gather the information before you're able to come back to them with a suggestion?
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say on average, it's about 2 meetings where, we're on and we're whiteboarding and we'll get it all done in about an hour. And then we'll probably have another meeting where we start to find pain points and whatnot. And by the third meeting, we've got like a high level roadmap of where we think you should go and some high level, like licensing, pricing, and whatnot. Because we think that if we get too far in the weeds too early, then it almost muddles the whole process. So we just want to keep it, high level with enough detail that you can see the vision for where we want to go, because we're going to get into the weeds and get into the detail when we do an architecture and planning engagement, and like show you what that true end state is going to look like. So a little bit of both,
Cool.
but 2, 3 meetings. And I think the one thing that I would always recommend for people to do beforehand is to get, more than one stakeholder on the phone. Like get the subject matter experts from, all of the different departments, from IT to, data prep, all the way through to the operators or the ops manager, because they will know what actually is happening and what they're actually doing and using in the shop. So I like to get a lot of people on the phone early, and do almost like a big data dump.
I think by doing that, also by bringing them all on, you're engaging with them. So when the time comes that you get down to say their department,
Mm-hmm.
they're not oblivious to the whole thing. They were there at the beginning when it started, and then they feel like they're involved as opposed to it's being shoved down their throat.
Yeah. And we're kind
Right?
of that IT team where we're like, all right, come in and give us the hard questions and kick the tires. Because if it's not going to work, we need to find that out early, and just save everyone the headache, because we'd rather just say, no, we don't do that, and set expectations than, not have the hard answers from the people who are actually going to use it until, you're 6 months into a project and you find an irrecoverable roadblock.
Yeah,
Uh,
and there's always roadblocks in software. So
mhm.
and then what the other thing I learned in software is it's never perfect, and you just keep working through the bugs. Because when we had done a big changeover, all my people did was complain about the bugs and tell me the software was no good,
Right. Yep. I mean,
and it was hard,
it's tricky.
frustrating.
We all have these very unique, print shops and organizations, and even though we're all doing the same thing, we're printing and we're mailing. There's so many nuances, and because of that, then there can be, buggy little fixes that you have to make in the software. And if there's not a good feedback loop with your vendor, then those support requests or those bug fix, notifications, you almost feel like they're going into a black box. You're like, is anyone on the other side of this getting these? And yeah, I know that's definitely, it can be frustrating.
Oh, it's tough. And I mean, on the printer side, when you're there and you have something or a situation, you want answers now.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and not every and I remember not all of us want to accept the fact that it really does take a little bit of time for you to go in and do some work, right?
Yeah, because we have to put on our, Inspector Gadget hats every once in a while. God forbid we can't replicate the issue in our environment, or, we're having to comb through the logs. And, thankfully there are AI tools out there that are helping expedite those sorts of processes, so that, we can hang up the investigator hat a little bit earlier. But then I think it's all about just setting expectations around communication. Like if you're the type of printer where it's going to drive you nuts if you leave at the end of the day and you don't know where something's at, and you're just like, okay, just need someone to tell me, even if they're still working on it, that they're still working on it. And so I always tell folks, like, if that's going to keep you up at night, just tell us. And then we'll set a little daily reminder, or our project manager will go bug the dev team and be like, we got to just let them know where we're at, even if we're still just working on it. Because
Yeah,
I'm not.
true. People just need to know something just so they could settle themselves and go to bed, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm about over communicating.
Okay. Over is better than under, depending on the situation, of course. What
Sure.
what uh what should printers be looking at in automation now?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's really so much. And I think it goes back to where you're trying to get to as a business. Are you trying to get more work out the door and increase your throughput without having to buy additional equipment or, add additional labor or full-time employees, what have you. Like if that's the use case, all right, great. Then we're going to do things like batching work together and, do running jobs through optimization so that they run faster on the printer and there's fewer setups on the printer. So that's, one goal. Or is it automation around the way that they could even communicate with your company? Like, do we just want to make a customer facing dashboard so everything is at their fingertips and we're automating how we're getting them status updates on their orders or sending out billing notices and invoicing statements and helping them get through the payment process with your company? All right, well, then that's kind of a different category. So automation, it can take all of these different forms, right? But are you trying to save money, trying to maximize throughput? Are you trying to reduce the number of manual touch points? Like the list goes on. So then I think it's tricky because as a business, you have to take a step back and go, okay, yes, I want automation, but what am I actually trying to solve for and why? And if you can't answer those two questions, or if you can't, work with a vendor and they can, help you tease out what those are, then I would say you're maybe putting the cart before the horse a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you said that about the questions that you have to ask and that the vendor should, work through it to get the answers. Because I say the same thing when it comes to buying equipment. Every printer should ask themselves 5 questions. If they can't answer those 5 questions, they shouldn't buy the equipment at the time until they figured out the answers to the questions. And I say the same thing to the OEMs. Your customer should answer the 5 questions before you sell the machine, because you're going to set yourself up for failure when there's a problem.
Yeah.
Some of the OEMs say it's not our problem, it's their problem, which I disagree with. But for the long term, I say to the OEM, sell the machine, but make them answer the questions first so everybody feels good going in.
Yeah,
Right. So,
absolutely. And I
so it's
think it's
always,
I think it's our ethical responsibility, our moral responsibility in sustaining long-term strategic client partner relationships and our client vendor relationships. I mean, that's the due diligence you have to do. Otherwise, we're in just a transactional world, and that doesn't foster, I think, the type of supply chains that are required in this day and age.
so I'm smiling and I'm laughing because I'm thinking you must be new school.
Okay.
Well, because we're in an old industry, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
and the older companies and the bigger companies and the public companies, it's really just about pushing machines or whatever it is to push the dollars, which
Okay.
which I get and I understand, right? But our industry is made up of a lot of smaller companies as opposed to bigger companies, and the smaller
Yeah.
companies need the help that you're talking about because they're
hmm
not equipped with the right IT people or enough people to do what has to be done, and then they look to your expertise to make things move along a little quicker,
Yeah, it's
right?
funny that
So,
you say
so
that because I started out in working for a small company and in web development of all things, and very consultative, just from the nature of the projects. But then when I moved over and I was selling cloud and space in a data center and servers and racks and all of that, we got acquired by a private equity firm, and it changed into that, I think, old school way of selling where it was like, nope, we have numbers that we need to hit and we're pushing things. And I don't really care if this is what the client needs. And I just remember feeling, I mean, I would come home just, this is embarrassing, but crying in the car. And my husband would be like, what is wrong? I'm like, I just feel dirty and I just feel gross. And it was a long, I think, probably 8 months before I left that. And I moved back to a small company, or just not private equity owned, but proprietary ownership.
oh
And I was like at Racami, and I just felt like, okay, now we're back. Like I just can't do it the other
it's
way.
bad. No, my part of before I was about to lose when I lost my business. A big part of why was one of my biggest customers, a friend of mine, who had a wicked business, and we did tons of work with them. He was fortunate to sell his business, and he got really nice money, but he sold it to an equity group, and the equity group came in And it didn't take long before they moved all the work to another country because they could save money. They put 400 people out of work. All the vendors that helped build up the company and the products that they had, in the end, only for the company to go bankrupt.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's so
Mhm.
yeah, equity's good. The money people are the money people, right?
Yeah.
They're not,
Yeah.
it's two sides are not really involved. But okay, next question. What size does a printer have to be before automation makes sense?
Yeah. So I think it's all scalable, but I am going to say there are some benchmarks. If you've got just one printer and, you're doing under 1 million pieces a year, if we're talking mail, and only, maybe less than 100 jobs a month, probably not where you would get the most bang for your buck and actually see a decent ROI. So I like to say, at least 3 to 5 printers, and your 3 to 5 printers, yeah, like 5 to 10 people. Five is, pretty tight, but sometimes, you make it work. And you're running, decent volumes, a couple hundred jobs a month or more, depending on how big or small they are. And especially when you get to multi-site, like if you've got multiple print shops, in different regions, then it's a no-brainer. If you're running multiple shifts, no brainer. And if you're taking in just high volumes of communications, be that print or digital, then okay. And there's multiple departments that have to touch all of those pieces of
Right.
communication or the data before it goes out. That's when we can really start to get the efficiency gains and get that ROI that you'd need to justify anything like this. Mm-hmm.
What are the top 5 issues printers face when implementing automation or CRM?
Ooh, this is a good one. All right. So issues that they face: not having a not having a core team or someone who is going to spearhead this project for you. I know we talked about this before we even got on the call. You need to have that point person in your organization who's going to rally the troops, make sure that this project makes progress, and works really closely with your vendor, because it's a partnership. You don't just sign a contract and hand it over to your vendor and, 6 months later they've cooked up automation and you just press the big green button and you go. You're
What do
having,
you mean it doesn't work like that?
I wish, yeah. Probably be able to retire a lot sooner if it was that easy. But
Mm,
if you, have those types of people, it's very collaborative, unfortunately, for better or worse. It's collaborative. You're having to create test files, find, data, do testing. And sometimes if you're not expecting that sort of collaboration, that level of collaboration up front, it can feel really overwhelming. But that's why I always say, like, when you're interviewing vendors, ask about the implementation process and the time commitment and the expectation they'll have of you, so that you can be as prepared as possible to fit this in to your everyday workload, which doesn't go away.
are printers signing up and then panic? So as printers sign up, are they panicking after?
Um, Well, no, because I force them to know those expectations up front. We don't really get past probably the
Good
second meeting.
answer. Good answer.
So no, but I can only speak for, the conversations that we have at Racami. So that's one, is just knowing the time commitment, because that can feel overwhelming. Two, not knowing what to expect and not asking, well, actually, let me rephrase: making assumptions. So you might think that, all right, this software is going to do X, but your vendor is like, well, no, it's going to do Y. And sometimes if you haven't had enough conversations or know, the vendor doesn't understand where you truly need to end up, you could be like end up developing yourself sort of into a corner that doesn't end up solving the pain point that your client over here was looking to solve. And so I think making sure you don't jump into development too quickly. And that can be hard. You want to get started on a project, people are excited, it's got attention, but just saying, no, we need to pause. And if you're working if you're working with a decent vendor, they should be the ones forcing you to pause, to really think this through and map out where you need to go and align on those expectations so that when you do get the end product, it's getting you what you want. So just starting too quickly, I think, is another challenge that can pop up. And then, getting budgetary approval is hard. Like, I get it. Times are tight. We all see the rising postage costs, and we have no idea what's going to happen. We're on shaky ground in terms of, new investment and what's happening with like the digital space. Like, there's just all of these contributing factors to why it's getting scarier and scarier to make large capital investments, right? And so I think that as soon as you start to think, okay, this might be on my radar, doing a project like automation might be on my radar, reach out to vendors sooner than later so you can get an idea of the costs, even if you don't think this project is going to be in your budget for next year, 2 years from now. But just start those conversations early so that you give yourself as much time as you need to be able to, acquire the funding or get, approval from the higher ups, because it always takes longer than expected. So if you wait until you already have a problem that you need automation to fix, you're going to be frustrated. Frustrated by
You're going to be frustrated no matter what, even when you try to start fixing it. But
yeah,
right?
that's fair. Frustration is part of it, but that's why I think, set up a really good communication cadence and feedback loop with the vendor that you choose, because if that falls apart, then how are you ever going to get through the frustrating moments in a project? And so if you can, grow that really solid base of communication and partnership early on, even in, the discovery and the sales and the pre-sales process, that'll go and pay dividends on the back end when things do get tricky during implementation.
I think also with AI today, I think back to if we had AI doing implementation and you have that, the file set up and everyone's using the same computer and you're putting in all your input, it's deciphering for you. You're avoiding those redundant complaints that people making or issues. And then it's actually giving you, it could probably give you some paths to follow, right? That even if the vendor is not explaining it 100%, AI might be able to help explain it even easier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't thought about that. That's a good point. That's another thing. If something doesn't quite make sense, I ask a lot of questions. I'm new to the print and mail world. And so I'm constantly asking our developers and even our clients, I'm like, all right, wait, tell me more, rephrase that in a different way, or like something isn't clicking for me. And yes, do I feel a little bit stupid half the time? Maybe. But at the end of the day, I'm going to figure out what the heck everyone else is talking about. And, I say to all my clients, if you have questions or if something doesn't make sense when we're going through it, hit the big red pause button, because it's only going to get worse and that could potentially lead to a misunderstanding of requirements, what have you. So ask questions and be loud until you feel confident.
So I'm laughing because in school, they always used to say, ask any question you have. There's no stupid questions. Well, I never asked a question because I was sitting in the back row by the window playing around all the time. Right. But then all of a sudden I'm in business for myself and the questions don't stop, because the more questions you ask, the better, you get answers. With those answers, you can make better decisions. You could decipher what some of your problems might be. And you get through it. And what do they say? You don't ever want to leave a stone unturned.
Exactly. And that's why I think, you can say what you want, but until you can answer, why do you want it? Then you're designing and developing before, to an end result that's probably not going to get you there in an efficient way. Like, you want to figure out the best way to get from point A to point B. So you have to know why you want to get there. And, those are the sorts of things that vendors will help you tease out, because you don't want to, overdevelop something or make something too complicated. And if your vendor is just kind of taken an order, like, okay, oh, all right, this is what you want X, Y, and Z, and they're not asking why, then maybe
find another vendor
to innovate.
Find another vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, you want to be asking many questions, but you want them asking more questions.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In my thinking. And
And
by the way, I didn't know all this before I got, did it all and spent a lot of money making mistakes and learning. It's like
for your own, yeah, guinea pig. And look for a vendor. This is what I tell everyone: look for a vendor who isn't afraid to push back on your ideas, and ask the hard questions. Because just because, you've been doing something the same way for years and years and years, all right, well, you're investing in new technology and new processes. What if there's a better way to run that process in this new like software? Let's innovate. Let's improve everything, even from a business process perspective. And that's why I tell our business analysts and our developers, like, push back, because that's the value we can bring. We do this every single day. We see so many
you
different
see
print
everything.
every day that, yeah, bring the ideas to the table. So I tell everyone, I'm like, if you're evaluating vendors and they just say like, yes, 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 and they're order takers, maybe that's what you want. But I always think there's a lot of value in getting that consultative, pushback.
Same thing for the sales in print. If salespeople in print are watching, ask a lot of questions. Don't ask for the order. See what you could do
Mhm.
for them. Find out what their, sore spots are.
Yeah.
Okay, next question's a good one then. Can you walk us through a real world? No, actually, we'll go one before that.
Okay.
How do you help printers overcome their fear of complexity and integrating new software? Because it's rather honestly, when I sat at a meeting once to listen to the whole thing, I couldn't even make it through the meeting listening because it was everything I don't really know above my pay grade. But
Hmm.
being that I was the head, I have to sit there. And then another question at the same time is, when you're selling, are the owners or heads of companies sitting in with all of these meetings?
Hmm. I would say I'll answer that because that's an easy one right off
Easy
the
one.
bat. Yeah, I mean, and if they're not,
Good.
I always think like, well, is there a way that we can at least run this past them? Like, all right, fine, we can figure out the details and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we need everyone on board, because these are not insignificant little changes that you're making. Like, this is going to be helping change and optimize the way you do business, and you need buy-in. So yes, we do like to have anyone and everyone who can be a decision maker on these types of calls. Um, because you also want to make sure the solution you're proposing is fixing their problems too, or the way that they perceive the top problems at the organization, which could be different than maybe in individual departments. Got to make sure those blend.
Yeah. So I think from a simplistic point of view, that every owner should be in the room for all of these big discussions, implementations, because if you want to be successful, you have to lead by example. If you show
Mm,
lack of interest, if you're not in the room, if you show lack of interest, then you can't expect your people to be successful without you.
yeah. Well, and that goes back to just a culture for change. And if you're not excited about the change, or if you're resistant, then how is that going to permeate through the rest of your company? It's going to be much, much harder. So I agree with that. What was the first question? I'm so sorry. I got on a tangent.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm just stalling because I have to see where it was.
Um,
First question was, how do you help printers overcome the fear of complexity of
yes.
integrating software?
Yeah. Okay. So we have some very talented solution architects, which help a lot. So I do give them a lot of credit. But I think, going through proof of concepts and going through, customized demos, and for something that we started doing a couple of years ago, which I did a lot back in my software web development days, is that we don't have you sign a contract for the whole enchilada, the whole project, until we get through what we call architecture and planning. And so by going through that process
Interesting.
and signing, it's a much smaller contract, maybe anywhere from like $5,000 to $15,000.
It's the
And
engagement.
yeah, and it goes through and it whiteboards it out in so much detail. It gives you all of, the technical scope that would then translate into the tickets our developers do like later down the road. But it interviews everyone at your company. Like, there's just so much that goes into it that by the time you get to the final solution design and you're signing the contract, um, there is no doubt that it's going to work, because we've ferreted out 95, I don't want to be overconfident, like 95% of the potential issues up front when it comes to feasibility and the value it would bring. And then the other thing I would tell print companies is that trying to define what ROI looks like on your own is not something that you have to do in isolation. Ask your vendors to help you run those numbers. It's just, that is something that if they're not offering, I'm sure if you asked, they would do. And if not, oh my gosh, red flag
Well,
galore.
how are they not how are they selling if they're not showing you what the benefit is of your expenditure
Yeah,
and
or
time, right?
helping you create the arguments and even like the slide deck or be in the presentation where you're pitching it to the rest of the company and asking for budgetary authority. Like, get their help in putting together those arguments for you. It can be a collaborative event because the software vendor, they know the value their software brings to the table. Have them help you understand how it applies to your business. And like, you don't have to come up with all of that on your own. Ask them for help. It's part of the pre-sales process. Let them do some of the heavy.
All included.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking question, what percentage of the of your customers doing projects actually complete them the way they should be completed?
Ooh, okay. So I have a question back for you. So this is a
By the way, no. It's my show. You don't ask questions. I ask the questions. No, go ahead. I'm just
laying
kidding.
down the law, guys. No.
You'll get me back when I come on yours.
Right. No. So before we started doing, the architecture and planning process where, you start with that baby contract first to dig into all the details, 5 years ago, we weren't doing that. We were just starting the project. And you do not know all of the gotchas at that point. You don't know how things are going to expand. Scope creep is going to happen. And so back then, kind of pre-architecture and planning phase in that era, the project always looked a little bit different than at the end than when it started. Now that we do architecture and planning, okay, that has greatly reduced that. Where, yeah, now, I mean, you really know up front exactly where you're going to land. That said, businesses change. You don't just get to sit in a vacuum for 6 to 12 months during a huge software implementation. And so if something changes in the business, that's a separate issue. Okay, how do we adjust? How do we pivot the software to match where you're going?
What percentage of your customers are happy when it's done?
Happy or relieved? No.
Well, they're relieved, all of them,
Yeah.
right? That's a given. No, but like, I mean,
No,
I'm not trying to be funny with the question, right? Because it
no,
can't be 100%. You have some probably amazing customers who engage with you and do everything you suggest and work really close. And then you have others who probably run a little wild and don't get back on time and blah, blah, blah.
yeah. So, I mean, I would say, I'm trying to think, probably 70% are, fully happy. And it might be like 70 to 80%. The other day, one of our clients, it had been, a rough project. Things had changed over the course of time. Management had changed over, people had changed over, requirements had shifted around quite a bit. And so it took, I think it was like 2 years. And it wrapped up. And at the end, they called us and they were like, you know what? We were having our, internal sort of launch party for this. And we were just so thrilled by the end with just the partnership and the collaboration and how you helped us get here to where we really needed to be, even though it's different than what we thought we needed at the beginning. That they, got us together and threw us a pizza party and they were like, we want you in on this.
Wow.
And so that was really nice. So I do think that even though there are bumps and sometimes clients, can get frustrated, at the end of the day, we're going to get them a solution that's going to work. So that's why, I think our satisfaction is decent and they see us trying to evolve too. We're not perfect. And, but we are getting better every single day. And I think that's the type of vendor relationships that a lot of our clients appreciate.
And I think the on the print side, they have to take what you're doing or any vendor more seriously, right? Because a lot of printers get caught up in what they do in their own world and then go a little slow sometimes, or I know we did. It
Mm.
was a priority, but it wasn't a priority, and everybody always looked to get done what was going in and out the door,
Oh yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it always went down. Can you walk us through a real, like just a real world success story, maybe a printer who transformed their workflow and how everything changed or what they felt?
Ooh, yes. Oh, I've got a good one. Okay, let me think. Oh, and what they felt. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. So one of our clients, they brought in our software and they were able, I wish I had the numbers up in front of me, but it was something like they were able to increase throughput because of, the automation tools in place and being able to batch jobs together and get more work out the door faster. And, because of, I think they were in insurance, what was going out the door had to go to the right person and there could be no errors. Like deliverability had to be 100% and it couldn't be wrong or else we were facing a fine. So that's a lot of pressure as a software vendor, but it's a lot of risk as a client. And so we were able to do that and I think increase their volumes in production by it was like 4,000%, and they didn't have to
Wow.
hire any additional employees. And so that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes you think it's a labor problem and it's really not, or sometimes you think just adding another piece of hardware is going to fix it. But there are other options here. And if you implement some lean manufacturing practices and some software to support you in that, you can really start to get more bang from your buck out of your existing employees and your existing hardware investments. It's
Yeah,
been
I
my
think a lot of people think the equipment is easier to, purchase and put in, and then you solve your problems that way, but it just makes your
experience.
problems bigger.
Yeah.
Better isn't better. That's what I've learned,
More isn't
right?
more. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Big isn't better. Better is better, and that's the way it is.
Mhm.
If you're doing it right. Um, How does Racami's Alchem e platform stand out from other automation or tools that you have?
Yeah, we get this question a lot because, again, it's hard to compare apples to apples. Everyone's website says the same thing. We automate and we're going to save you time and you're going to become more efficient. And you're like, oh, good Lord.
Everyone's full of it, right?
I
It's
don't
all
know
the
what that
things you want to hear.
means. Yes. And so what we say is that it's all a matter of scope. Because you now see, all of these different tools like the Quadients, the Solmars, like they do automation too. And they can be really good at it too. Switches out there and they might automate pieces of your workflow. So like Quadient, for example, they're going to automate the composition piece and maybe the digital delivery piece of your workflow. But what we do is we automate your end-to-end workflow from the time an order comes in, either on your storefront or through data files, through data preparation, doing postal pre-sort, composition, adding barcodes, creating the intelligent file-based inserting files, getting it on the printer, doing reprints, putting it through the inserter, all of that, we have our tentacles in. Like we layer on top of that entire ecosystem. If you need us to, of course. And that is something that sets us apart. Like we're truly an integration platform that can touch everything and orchestrate everything. And we're not bound to limited scopes where some of these other players, like to play. So that's kind of how we differentiate, is just scope. It sounds
Cool. That's
easier
what
than it
that.
is or simpler than it is, but
Well,
that's what.
everything with software sounds simpler than it is. I mean, everyone upgraded to what is it? Is it Windows 11 already? I haven't figured out Windows 7 yet. I still use the word in the Excel and the Outlook, and then there's like 98% of the rest of the software that they could, that could do something for
Right.
you. So everyone's always like, "Oh, upgrade, upgrade," but like, I don't need to go better, faster, bigger because I'm still moving slow, right? With to go
Yeah, you
bigger,
got
better,
to
faster,
with more.
you need more, more things to go forward.
Yeah.
What trends are you seeing in how customers want to receive communication, like print versus digital?
Yeah. I mean, some of the big trends that we're seeing, and I think everyone kind of already sees this. It's like, all right, we're having a resurgence in direct mail. Like you're seeing the polls and the surveys and the data come out about millennials and young millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and they're all trusting physical pieces more so than potentially digital, and we're getting burned out by digital. And so we feel that connection when we can feel a piece in our hands. And so I do think that's interesting, but I think it all, even if print is still, growing in some sectors, you have to be able to connect it back to that digital ecosystem. Like, for example, I might get my notice that I need to go renew my registration for my car in the mail, but I want to be able to go onto their website and pull up my car registration renewal and see that same PDF when I go to pay my bill. And if you don't have that cohesiveness between the physical and the digital, that's where I think you're going to erode some of that customer satisfaction. And I think customers are expecting sort of that seamless experience. And then also, we all want self-service. No one wants to necessarily get on the phone with support or have to, call in. And that goes for B2B relationships as well. So we're seeing, just a huge rise in demand of customer portals for, print service providers and your little print shops and service bureaus, because clients want to be able to come in, submit jobs, proof jobs, get the status of their jobs, see if it's been mailed, get the mail delivery specs and pay their invoices, do all of that in a very, again, cohesive, I guess is my word of the day, experience, and in a cohesive portal. They don't want to be logging in to multiple tools. They don't want to log into a print tool and log into a
No, for sure.
file. No, 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 no. Or, then have to go and pay their bill in a whole different portal. It just needs to be one experience. And thankfully, that's something that you can achieve using software that's got API connectivity to, pull all these tools into one place and expose it to the customers that you've got.
Yeah, I just started actually. The bank kind of forced me. I get my statements online now, right? Because they're and no, and I, even like Visa, I insist on printed. I end up paying bills late because email and digital notifications don't really work. I get so
No.
much. It's funny. I get so much email messaging, et cetera, et cetera. I don't even get to look at the stuff I want to from friends,
Yes, it's all
right?
big.
Let alone anyone who's sending me whatever. I'm gonna call it junk email,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because unsolicited is junk, but I do like to look at it. But when I get something printed that
Hmm.
sits on, it has my name on, I can't throw myself out. So it sits on the table. Everyone else in the house could, but no, but it sits there and I look at it. Eventually it's going to go into the garbage bin or recycling bin, and whatever bin's there. And you keep it, you look at it, you touch it, you feel it. The
Exactly.
digital the digital stuff, we're not printing anymore, and you lose your touch, you lose your feel, and you lose your emotion,
Exactly. I think it's so
right?
true. And there's, we need to be able to capitalize on this as an industry. And I think, we're seeing where embellishment is going. I just got back from Printing United, and you see all of the great things that they're doing on that side, and just what you can do to capture the customer's attention. You have so many amazing ways to do that in print that you don't necessarily get to do in, say, just an email reminder that they don't even see because it's buried in an inbox that's got like 20,000 emails.
But even when email comes in, it comes in quick. It looks, you're managing your spam folder these days because we get
Yeah.
more spam than ever before. What comes in, what's real, what's urgent, what's not urgent. Everybody's BCCing everybody on stuff back and forth. Even I can't even take. I wish we would come up with a protocol to just not reply to all, say thank you. Just know we're thanking you, because you could save 15% of your emails of the final. Everyone's got to get the last word in.
Yeah.
So it kind of doesn't work so well. Question:
Yeah.
Where does AI fit into Racami's roadmap or the broader print automation space? It's a
Yeah.
bit of a
So
little bit of a loaded question, but because it could be big.
we're using it internally. I mean, it's helping with things like code reviews and doing some light QA. I mean, there's always going to be that human element and oversight. But if you can have AI go in and read through the scripts that you're telling it to read through and optimizing those scripts and just making sure you're not doing, silly human error level mistakes, fantastic. So from a quality perspective, it is great. Well, I think it will replace development altogether. Not in our world. It's not there yet. But from a product perspective, we're doing some really interesting things that are in our prototyping lab, even when it comes to like indexing PDFs. And, traditionally, what we have to do right now is you have to draw lines and create indexing templates where you're like, all right, my address block is here and these coordinates. And then when these PDFs come in, all right, I'm going to go to those coordinates. I'm going to scrape the content off and I'm going to put it in the database. But clients don't always send you the same stuff. They move those address blocks around, man, or, whatever data it is. And so having AI assist in being able to intelligently index and look through documents and understand what's on the page to help, alleviate the need for an indexing template every single time a document changes. I think are areas where this will be a good thing for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I know I don't send an email twice or something out the same thing twice in the same place. Anything, just kind of moves, changes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I remember even when people used to send me stuff, they say repeat. It's never a repeat. There's always a change or a movement of something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. They only tell you that when you get it, and they want it in 2 days.
Exactly. So, I think there's some great things just around quality and speed and just making things a little bit, easier to automate too. And then, I mean, if we're just looking at data and, the ETL world and data cleansing and data hygiene, that, I mean, is where I think we're going to see so much progress here in pretty rapid succession, because you're no longer going to have to write custom scripts for everything in terms of how you want to change and manipulate your data to get it into that final format where it can be ingested and composed into documents. No. We can have machines and AI help prepare and massage that data for us. And I think that's where I'm excited for the future, because right now, I mean, data management, it is hard. It has been something we've been struggling with for, decades as a culture, as a species.
Yeah, and it's probably always going to be a little hard, right? Because it's sensitive information and everyone reacts to it differently. I mean, I remember people used to send files and like they asked me, "What's your security?" And I'm like, "What's the difference? You just gave me social insurance numbers you shouldn't be giving me."
Stop. Okay.
Right? I mean, you've got to make sure
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I'm just laughing. Everyone's asking you these pointed questions, but they're not doing anything on their end. It's like they're just asking the questions so they can go back and advise somebody else about
Yeah.
what the answers are, but it doesn't mean anyone's delivering anything properly.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's the implementation component of this that's still always going to be there, and it's still always something you'll probably be able to screw up or have a security vulnerability. So there's that people element, and that's never
Well,
going to.
you say people element, but the AI element is if people put in the wrong info, it's going to give you the wrong AI
Oh,
advice.
yeah. Good
Right?
data
It's all
in, good data out.
garbage in, garbage out. It doesn't matter where it is.
Exactly. Exactly. So, there's always risks, but I think, even if we can get incrementally better and incrementally faster at doing some of these things, then that just means that we'll have more time, more money, more resources to invest in building out new parts of the market and, pushing this print and mail ecosystem, further if we're not bogged down as much in some of the data driven tasks and the manual tasks. That's
We
my
hope it goes that far where everybody benefits without all the savings, time, human resources, money, etc., to reinvest.
Yeah.
Right? It'll be interesting. Okay, so we got 2 more questions. What advice would you give small to medium sized printers who still run on a manual process with no automation?
Ooh, what advice?
Get out of business. Close your doors. It's almost over. Come to us or you're done. No.
Can you imagine that? Man, heck of a marketing campaign. No, I think I've got two pieces of advice. One, start talking to everybody. Find some associations that you can go to. Talk to other printers who may have, who are, examples in the industry where you're like, oh, have seen their growth and I want to, be on that same trajectory, or I want to see how they got there. And just start asking around and hearing who helps them, how they were able to do it, and what challenges they experienced, so that you can start to just get a lay of the land, because it can be very daunting if you don't have a background in this to just, get on Google and start Googling. Like, ask your peers and use them as a resource. Second, and it's in the same thread, is start calling vendors and asking questions, because I personally find it so irritating when I'm looking for, tools, and I'm going online and I'm doing my own research, and all these websites say the same thing. And I've just, in my own life, gotten to the point where I just schedule those 15-minute demos or those 15-minute conversations. And yeah, it might be annoying having to talk to a salesperson for a few minutes, but to me, that's the fastest way to figure out if what they're selling is actually something that could help me, and vice versa. So talk to vendors. Even if you don't really know what you're doing yet, they should be able to help you figure out where you want to go. Even if it's just from advice or throwing ideas at the wall to see what sticks, like, use them as sounding boards too, because one conversation isn't going to, kill anybody. And even if you don't buy from them, I'm sure, at least in my own experience, I'm happy to talk to people, even if it's just two.
Well, you also learn who you potentially want to do business with, right? Because the people that want to talk to you, whether you're going to give them a job or not, are talking people. And it's not about now, it's always about after. So
Yeah.
I find that there's a lot of people who, don't want to talk, or grumpy, or short. And then the ones that do want to talk and make the effort to explain, you go farther with them. Because as
Yeah.
much as I go to the store, I don't use that self-checkout counter. At the grocery store, no, I go to the cashier. I go to the cashier and let her scan it and let someone put it in a bag. If I'm going to the checkout counter, then I want a discount for doing the work.
Right. And
Right.
I'm sorry, my
And if you go to the checkout counter, you're putting somebody out of work.
if you go to the checkout counter, I thought that's what we wanted to do.
No, the self scan.
Oh, yes. No.
You're putting someone out of work. When used to go to Wendy's, Wendy's said they do it all for you, so they clean up and everything. And now, I leave my plate on the table. Otherwise, I'm taking a job away from somebody. I'm trying to be job creation here.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And use people where, they have value. Utilize their value, and, ask questions. And just, even if you are not going to make a decision on this software, there are some companies that I've talked to for 2+ years, and I don't care that they're not ready to move forward right now. They might never be ready, and they might never even go with Racami. But I know, at least if I could help them get to that end state, who knows down the line if they change companies or what have you, like, just being helpful in an industry matters, and it pays dividends on the back end.
It's really, I look at the people aspect of things as a pay it forward.
Yeah.
Being that I've always been in sales, I take every phone call that comes in. I might not be on the phone long, but I answer and I let everyone tell me, because I just think, if I'm doing it, someone on the other end should be doing the same thing to me and give me a break. If you're not kind, no one, if you're not kind to people, who's going to be kind to you?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And you do get more when you're being nice. And I also find, like, our industry, you have to explain. And I
Yes.
want to be in front of people. When you're not in front of people, you don't get the full kick, the full emotion, the full feel. You don't even get the full charge when you win. Because what are you going to do? High five a Zoom call? Hey, thanks, man. You want to give a shake a hand and a hug and show everyone your appreciation. So
Yeah.
I like that. I'm all for that. All for people being people. Listen, it's bad enough now you go out and everyone's just looking down at their phones.
Right. It's just like, all right, let's have some connection, and let's just really kick the tires on this thing, and see where it goes. And even if it takes years,
Nothing
it's never a
is
bad thing to start those conversations early. Like,
right.
just go out and learn. People want to teach you.
But in our world of print, nothing is a quick sale.
No.
Unless you're buying a small machine.
Yeah.
Unless you're buying a small machine, but otherwise everything else, only because it's long-term commitment.
long-term commitment, and we're in the business of doing typically high volume, low margin pieces. And so to put in such a huge capex investment, the number of pieces that you have to turn over to recoup that investment, I mean, it's high, and you can't make a mistake, or else that could be your business shutting down.
Every person doing direct mail should raise their price 5% at the same time. It's not collusion because I'm saying it and I'm not talking out loud or directly to anyone. But no, but our industry, you said it. And I want to remind everyone, for the capex that we have to spend to be competitive, to be out there, we shouldn't be beating the price. And that's just my message all the time. We without us, there's no world. No one does anything. So we should be compensated properly with the right margin, not the lower margin. Unlike some lawyers, professionals, and others who just
Yeah. Well,
I'm
it's true.
always pushing the high margin.
Absolutely. And I
Right.
think that also comes back to just being educational in how you approach sales. Even if your customers are coming to you and, they just want some postcards, or it's something so simple where it could just be very like transactional of an order. Like if you go the extra distance with your salesperson, you're like, no, this is what's happening in the direct mail industry, and this is what we could do, and this is how we could make you better. And, maybe if we add an embellishment or whatnot, whatever you need to do to teach customers what that value is, then that's why you're able to charge the higher margins, or, for more expensive pieces and for add-ons. But there's that education component between the salesperson and the customer that's needed. Be that if you're selling complex software, or if you're selling, printed mail, printed pieces. I think education is something that can easily be overlooked.
Education is important in everything. And a lot of times everyone's just moving quickly to get to where they want to go and leave out a whole bunch of information in the middle that could be critical, or not. But never hurts to learn. Never hurts to learn.
Yes.
Wow, this was awesome. You got me thinking about so many things.
So I can't believe it's already been an hour. That was the fastest hour of my life.
I know, and I tried not to talk, which was tough in itself. I have like marks in my teeth from biting my tongue. But no, it's okay. I'm practicing. So last question, like looking ahead, what does the next wave of automation look like? Or is there a wave? Could it get more automated, like without putting machines in or robots?
I'm not sure if it's going to be a wave, to be quite honest, because this technology, you don't come out one day and be like, look, I've released all of these new products. It's like this very iterative process, both as a technology company who's going through research and development, and then also as the way that, printers and then their customers, the people who are receiving these communications, their expectations are shifting. It's not like they wake up one night and they say, I only want, X, Y, and Z. It's like this very gradual shift in consumer expectations, and then those affect what's being printed and what's being mailed, and then those trickle over into what we're developing in the software and how we're automating things so that those shops can meet those expectations. And so I think it's just gradual. And I mean, look, overnight, did AI completely change the landscape? No, like these LLMs, they've been around for like years and years and years, and they gradually.
Yeah, but it gave a pretty good shock to the system to a lot of people who, some of us know they've been around for 20, 30 years working in the back end.
Yeah.
But to most of the people, AI is ChatGPT, OpenAI, and
Totally.
it's this. And they don't even know anything else that it could do other than some quick emails and some quick stuff that they're doing, right? More people need to get more familiar with it. But
that's just, the bell-shaped adoption curve, right? It's like, all right, but once it hits, the early majority, then, it really spikes. And so, I think it's going to be gradual, but who am I to know anything? So we'll see, but that's my crystal ball. What do you think?
ChatGPT will come out with number 8 soon, and then who knows? You know what? I don't really know. I just know that things keep evolving and keep moving. They were going a certain way until AI was exposed to the public, and then it kind of stepped up. I think we all have to be careful. There's a lot of people talking AI out there. There's a lot of things being offered that are just full of shit, right? That are loaded up. And it's super, super important to be careful because you don't want to get scammed out.
Yeah.
I also don't think that I think you have to educate yourself and understand. I just don't think you rush into it.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be the end all of everything. It's going to make our lives a little easier, but anything that makes our lives easier also makes it a little more complicated somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
So personally, I'm just going to keep learning, watching, and seeing, and trying to find some of the tools that will just make my life a little better and a little easier,
100%.
right?
Couldn't have
I'm
said it
not I'm
better.
not looking to change the world yet or
Yet.
ever. I don't
Yeah.
no ever. I don't have time for that stuff, and I don't need the aggravation. It's hard enough dealing with me alone, right? So I work on that, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Any final words that you want the audience to hear, to take
You
away?
know, I think your shirt says it best. Code it, print it, crush it. That is, the ethos we live by here at Racami. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to come on and gab with you for an hour and, yell into the void a little bit. So it was a great conversation and definitely a lot to think about.
Cool. No, thank you. And I feel the same way because I had these questions done, and I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, but the importation, buying, whatever. But it's always good to hear. It's always good to know things are always changing a little.
Yeah.
I know that it's always that one little nugget that you hear somewhere that ends up changing what you do or how you do it.
It's so true.
So
Yeah.
so I don't think people could talk enough to other people about things. I think when
Thank
people are speaking to their vendors, they have to speak to some of their customers that had a really rough time and made it through. I
hmm
don't like to listen to vendors who only give me their best cases where nobody had any issues because that's not real life,
No,
right?
yeah.
Just the more all encompassing you have of good and bad, it gives you what you need to get to the right outcome.
Yeah. And if
Because
you
there are
can't
there
acknowledge that something went poorly, then there's no way you're going to learn from it. And then there's no way you're going to improve on it. And so if you can't be honest about those experiences, then I think that's also a huge red flag when doing vendor analysis.
there's lots of flags to look out for, right?
So many flags.
Anyway,
That could be a whole other podcast. No,
I was gonna say we can go on and talk and keep talking for hours and hours, but
I know we got to
we
wrap it up here. All right.
but we can, so we got to wrap it up. So first, I just want to thank you for taking the time coming on and saying everything that you did and the way you did, because I think it resonates with a lot of people and will help people get through some of their situations, knowing that there is light at the end of a tunnel when it comes to software and implementation.
Amen.
To everybody who is listening, as always, I hope you made it to the end because the best stuff is always at the end. So if you made it to the end, tell someone else about the end. And I appreciate you listening. Again, hope you learned something new. If you know anyone who wants to be on, if you have anything you want to say, reach out to me. Always happy to talk. Always happy to spread the word. Always looking to do my share to promote print anywhere that it can be promoted. So I thank you for listening. Katelin, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. We'll have to have you on Printfluencers next time. Keep this
Anytime.
party going.
Sounds like a plan. Until next time, everybody. Ciao.